The heat of summer, 3-year anniversary, I think it's time for another channel update. Welcome to the Soft Skill channel. My name is Sebastian Jung and I welcome you to the channel update Summer 2023. As usual, let's have a brief look back at our recent videos. First of all, we had the book review of The Managed Heart by Ali Russell Hochschild. As you remember, this video was pretty much delayed. It was supposed to come earlier, but it had to be postponed. But it's nice we had this book review in the end because it's a very interesting book. We learned about the concept of emotional labor, and I think that is helpful for better understanding the modern working world, the modern business world. After that, we discussed the topic of dark patterns in two videos, one about dark patterns on the internet and one about dark patterns in gaming. This was quite an interesting topic related to nudges, related to biases and fallacies. So some interesting stuff. Brief fun fact about that: after making those videos, I thought it might be a good idea to get rid of old accounts that I don't use anymore for reasons of privacy, IT security. So my personal data, even if it is just an email address, is not sitting on some old abandoned accounts. But yeah, just let me tell you, it was pretty difficult. I tried for 3 different services. I only managed to actually delete my account for one of them, and even that one wasn't easy. So yeah, it's not only Amazon that makes it difficult for people to get rid of their accounts. It was very nice to make a video about gaming because that is a beloved hobby of myself. However, of course, in relationship to dark patterns, it was more of a negative topic, the rise of service games, which I personally don't like a lot, but still it was nice to make a video about gaming. After that, we had another book review and we started the topic of habits with The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Very nice, a very entertaining book. I read it a few years ago for the first time, read it again for the book review, still like it. It is a very nice introduction to understanding habits, provides a lot of information about how they work. After that, we had another addition to our collection of biases and fallacies. This time we talked about framing, which is quite an important concept in the area of biases and fallacies, and also quite extensive, far-reaching. I'm still not really certain if I am content with the video I made, if I really covered all the important points. Now there is one point I unfortunately had to leave out. To my best knowledge, it makes a difference whether I say, for example, 3% of the affected people died or 3 out of 100 people died. Because the phrase 3 out of 100, if we hear that phrase, we tend to imagine specific people. So we have a stronger emotional response. So this is an example of framing. This is a case where the phrase makes a difference in regard to our reaction, but unfortunately I searched but I couldn't find the source where I got this information from, so I had to leave it out of the video. If you know where it is described, please let me know in the comments. I guess we will figure it out sooner or later. After that, there was the second book review about habits, and this was Atomic Habits by James Clear. This book I read for the first time, but I think it is quite interesting. I like the basic idea. By making small changes to our daily routines, to our daily habits, we get small improvements, small successes that accumulate over time to great results. This basic idea I fully agree with. I don't like all the strategies that Clear presents here, but overall I think it's a nice book, and I think we have a nice set by having had a look at The Power of Habit, which provides a good understanding of the topic, and by looking at Atomic Habits, which provides a lot of tips and advice and guides for our day-to-day life. Now there is still one piece of the puzzle missing, I think, even though we had a look at two different books that are both very popular and well known. We didn't have a book that was actually written by a scientist, because Charles Duhigg is a journalist and James Clear is an author and speaker. So we don't have a book by a scientist yet. We might have a look at one in a future video if I find one. So I think this would still be interesting. Which videos are to come in the next couple of weeks and months? Again, my planning isn't finalized, so it is still all a bit vague, but I have some general ideas. First of all, I want to continue the topic of habits for a bit more. I want to make a shorter video about how to change habits, how to get rid of bad habits using the instructions given by Charles Duhigg, maybe with some additions by Clear. Because I think this is a topic that will be interesting to a lot of people, and maybe some don't want to watch 30-minute book reviews to get this information. So I want to make a separate video with that. And I'd also like to create a soft skill talk about habits, to finish up this whole topic, to talk a bit about what we have learned, which questions are still unanswered, maybe share a bit of my personal experiences. So there will be a soft skill talk about habits. The next topic I want to cover is expressive writing. Now, a viewer of the German channel pointed out this topic to me, and at his recommendation I had a look at the books by James Pennebaker. This one is Right to Heal. Unfortunately, I could only get the German edition, and also Opening Up by Writing It Down. I read both of them and found them quite interesting, and I experimented a bit with expressive writing, and I think it is a nice technique, a nice tool to have and to know. So my current plan is that I will create one video about expressive writing overall, where I also give brief instructions what to do if you want to give it a try, and I will create a book review for the Pennebaker books. Maybe one video where I cover both, or I will pick one of them, probably Right to Heal. I'm not sure yet, but there will be a book review about a Pennebaker book. There will also be another video about biases and fallacies, but I haven't picked the specific bias or fallacy I will cover yet. There is one slot still pretty much open, one video I haven't decided about yet. There are some candidates. It would be nice to do a book review for a book by Carl Rogers, because we discussed Marshall Rosenberg and Thomas Gordon, and they are both students of Carl Rogers. So it would be interesting to have a look at a book by the master himself, but I have to do some more research to figure out which book is the most relevant relevant one, which is the book where you get most information about client-centered therapy that Rogers developed. Another candidate would be the Pareto principle. However, there the primary source is somewhat difficult because it is some extensive work about economics, so I have to figure out which secondary sources are good for me to use. So again, I need to do some more research. Another idea would be to try out a new series I have in mind, so maybe I will do that. Anyways, the next channel update, the channel update autumn, will arrive end of September on the 22nd to be precise, in calendar week 38. So, what are the news about the channel? Now, most obviously, we are celebrating our 3rd anniversary. I have prepared the usual sparkling wine. I still haven't looked up the term, but I don't have any cake or anything because it is really hot. It would probably melt, and I decided not to overdo it with the clothing. I have the old shirt I used in the first videos for some nostalgic feelings, but apart from that, I think it's fine, and I think we better not overdo it with those anniversary celebrations. I think the first and second were rather special, and the 5th one will probably be again, but we shouldn't overdo this each year. But I still would like to thank you for your support, for watching our videos, for your likes and comments and subscriptions. So thanks a lot. Here's to you. So, what's going on with the channel? How will we proceed in this new channel year? That's actually not so simple to answer because you see, in the first 1 or 2 years, our main objective, our goal was to reach 1,000 subscribers on our German channel. And by now we have achieved that. We are still a few hundred away on the English channel, but I think we will achieve that as well at some point. Thanks a lot for your support in that. But what is next? What are we doing now? The growth of the channel is actually rather slow. Now currently there is a summertime where there are less views and less growth anyway, and growth also decreased when we switched to one video every 2 weeks instead of every week. But even before that, growth wasn't very fast. So, for example, it wouldn't be a realistic goal to aim for 10,000 subscribers. We probably wouldn't manage to achieve that even in 10 years. So, this wouldn't be practical. It's not tragic that the growth isn't that fast. We didn't have super high expectations when we started the channel. We didn't expect to become rich and famous or anything. We just wanted to try it out, see how it works, what we can do, if people would like the videos. And I wanted to make videos that I myself would have liked to watch, but that weren't available on YouTube yet. And this is what we are doing. So at this point, the direction we take is to get away from the idea that this channel could also be some kind of professional project or commercial project, and move more towards the idea that this is more of a hobby, more of a spare time activity. And at the beginning of the year, when we decreased our frequency of new videos from one video every 2 weeks instead of weekly videos, this clearly was a step in this direction. Decrease the effort and the workload to something we can integrate into our daily lives. and that works for us in the longer run. We still might need to make more adjustments to that in the future, but that is what we are currently doing. Of course, we are also still trying to improve the videos, to get better. So maybe there will be more growth, more viewers in the future. Now, this should be obvious. If people are not watching the videos, maybe something is wrong with the videos. Maybe some things could be improved. And I guess there are plenty of things that we could do better, where we could improve the videos. To make the videos more interesting visually would be a rather obvious point, because at the moment those videos are pretty much podcasts where you see the speaker with some brief visual elements at some specific points. So there is room for improvement. I have some ideas about that, but it will probably be a while before we can realize anything in that regard. Because the issue with making any improvements is always the new improved video still has to make do with the same available resources, with the same amount of effort, of time, of money, and so on. It has to work with the same limitations we currently have. So there are, of course, plenty of things I could imagine that would be great, but that I can't realize with the means we currently have. Now, however, there is one thing I would like to try out in the near future, and that is a better structure for book reviews. And I'd like to tell you briefly about that. Now, a lot of my videos are pretty long, especially book reviews. They are usually about half an hour. This is pretty long for a YouTube video. The length has increased over time. I will try to turn this back a bit. And at this point, the book reviews have pretty much become detailed walkthroughs, where I go through the book from beginning to end and summarize everything to you. And I think the problem is that you, as viewers, you arrive at this video with different expectations. Now, some of you probably think, oh, I won't read this book anyways, but I would like to get a good idea what it is about, and I wouldn't mind some details. And those probably watched the 30 minutes and are happy. However, there are probably others who say, well, I don't want to read the book, I don't have the time or whatever. I would just like a brief general idea what it is all about. And they probably get bored halfway in this 30-minute video and will quit with the feeling of I didn't get what I wanted and this was a waste of time. And there are probably still others who say, I'm not sure if I should buy and read this book. I would like some help in making the decision. And they will probably say somewhere in between, oh, this is too much detail. I don't want to have, I don't need to know all of this if I'm going to read the book anyways. And they will also quit and be dissatisfied. So the idea I have is to structure the video in a more modular or fragmented way, so it is easier to quit at certain points and still get value out of the video. So for example, I might start with a short agenda where I inform you what information will be in the video, what sections, and then when I talk about the book and the author, I might give a bit more of an explanation. What is this book all about? What is the author's promise? What can we get out of this book? And at this point, maybe some people will quit the video and say, all right, this is all I needed to know. I won't watch any further, but I'm content and I'm satisfied with what I got out of this video and it was nice. And then I will give maybe a shorter, more brief explanation of the book's structure. If you read the book, what will you spend all your time on? What topics take the most room in the book? And so on. And again, after this section, some viewers might say, oh well, I wanted to decide whether I buy and read this book, and now I have a good impression and this was helpful. I will quit at this point, but with the feeling of being satisfied and content, and the video actually helped me out. And after that, maybe there will be some more details. Maybe I will talk about sections I found to be especially interesting or especially helpful in some more details. And at this point, the people who will still be watching will be those who want some more details, and they will be happy to get that. So this is the general idea, to structure the video in a way where you can quit at certain point, but still get value out of the video. And now there are, of course, some open questions, challenges. For example, the critique is currently at the end of the book review. So with a new structure, it would still be at the end. Most viewers would never see the critique, but of course it is relevant. And having the critique somewhere in the middle and having new material that isn't mentioned in the critique come afterwards, of course this would be strange. So maybe I won't have critique as a separate section anymore, but add some personal notes to all of the other sections. I'm still trying to figure this out. And there will probably be some challenges. For example, if I describe the book structure and I don't give enough examples, it might seem rather abstract and hard to grasp. So I will have to figure things out a bit. But I think this is a good direction, and I will try this out in the coming book reviews. Feel free to let me know in the comments how you like this general idea, and also feel free to let me know what you would change in the videos. What are the aspects of the videos that you don't like very much? Now, of course, please be aware that I won't be able to realize all ideas and pick up all suggestions, and there might be some I don't agree with, but I would still like to know what you would change if you had the chance. I will probably talk about this glass of water and the short drinking breaks in one of the next channel updates. I know this is a popular topic in the comments, but the video today would get too long if I do this as well. Speaking about it. So that's it for today. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you have a great summer, maybe with a nice vacation in between. We will see each other in the next video. For today, I'll take my leave. Have a nice day. See you next time.